Ladies and gentlemen, people love to throw the word luck around as if it's some mysterious force that decides who succeeds and who fails, who gets the break and who gets left behind. But here's the truth most people never face. Luck is not real in the way they think it is. What the world calls luck is nothing more than a combination of mindset, preparation, and relentless action colliding with opportunity. When you see someone winning, it's not because a random stroke of fate landed on their lap. It's because they have been conditioning their mind and their actions for that moment long before it came. They were ready. They had done the work. They believed in the possibility so much that their brain was already wired to spot the opening when it appeared, and they moved on it without hesitation. On the other hand, someone else might have had the exact same opportunity, but because they live in a mindset of "I'm unlucky, nothing good ever happens to me," they don't even recognize the moment when it's right in front of them. They miss it not because they were doomed, but because they were blinded by their own belief system. The human mind is like a magnet. Whatever you believe, you begin to see. If you keep saying to yourself, "I'm unlucky," you're programming your brain to search for proof that life is against you. You'll remember the rejections, the failures, the moments you were overlooked, and you'll use them as evidence to support your belief. You'll ignore or downplay the times something went right. You'll discount your own wins. You'll create a narrative that you are cursed, and your subconscious will do everything in its power to keep your actions in line with that story. This is not some mystical law, it's psychology. It's conditioning. It's the way your reticular activating system filters information. Your mind deletes what doesn't match your beliefs and magnifies what does. So if you insist you are unlucky, you will always find more reasons to stay unlucky. The truth is, you're not cursed, you're conditioned. The patterns you've been running in your head are not destiny, they're habits of thought. You've been rehearsing the same mental script over and over until it feels like the truth. And because it feels true, you stop questioning it. That is why so many people live their entire lives in the same mental prison. They're waiting for something external to happen to change their story, but the reality is, nothing changes until they rewrite it themselves. The power is always internal. Your luck starts shifting the moment you start thinking differently, speaking differently, and acting differently. People look at a successful person and say, "They're so lucky." No, they're prepared. They've been doing the boring, unglamorous work for years. They've been reading, learning, training, connecting, trying and failing, getting back up and trying again. By the time the world calls them lucky, they've gone through hundreds of unseen moments where they could have quit but didn't. Their luck is just the inevitable outcome of consistent, intentional effort. It's not magic, it's cause and effect. When you plant enough seeds, some will grow. If you plant none, you'll have nothing but empty soil and the bitter belief that life just isn't fair to you. You have to understand that every single belief you hold shapes the way you move in the world. If you believe you're unlucky, you hesitate more. You second guess yourself, you don't take the bold risk, you play small because you expect failure. And here's the dangerous part, you might think you're avoiding disappointment, but you're actually guaranteeing it. The very belief that you're unlucky becomes the architect of the mediocre results you get. But if you start operating from the belief that you have the power to create your own opportunities, you'll start behaving like someone who's ready for them. You'll move faster, you'll speak with more certainty, you'll act without the constant drag of self-doubt. That shift alone will make people notice you differently, and opportunities will begin to appear, not because the universe suddenly decided to bless you, but because you finally put yourself in a position to see and seize them. It's also worth pointing out that opportunities rarely arrive in perfect packaging. Most people who complain about bad luck don't even recognize the raw, unpolished opportunities they're given, because they're too busy looking for a jackpot moment. They want the perfect job offer, the perfect partner, the perfect timing, but life doesn't hand you perfection, it hands you potential. The so-called lucky people are just better at spotting potential and acting on it. They don't sit around saying, "I'll wait until the conditions are perfect." They move on what's in front of them and make it work. They understand that luck favors motion. You're not unlucky. You're just not training your mind to look for what's possible. You're not unlucky. You're just repeating the same thoughts and behaviors that keep you in the same place. Every day, you wake up with a chance to shift your trajectory, to prepare yourself so thoroughly that when the door cracks open, you don't hesitate. You kick it wide open. That readiness, that decisiveness, that confidence, it's what the outside world calls luck, but you'll know it's simply you creating the conditions for success over and over again until the result become undeniable. Negative feelings have a way of convincing you that they are permanent, that the way you feel right now is the way you will always feel. They creep in during your lowest moments and whisper lies in your ear, telling you that you are stuck, powerless, and doomed to repeat the same pain over and over again. But the truth is, negative emotions are not life sentences. They are signals. They are messengers. They exist to tell you that something in your life, your perspective, or your habits is out of alignment with the life you want to live. When you feel anger, it's a signal that a boundary has been crossed or a value has been violated. When you feel sadness, it's a sign that something meaningful to you is missing or has been lost. When you feel envy, it's pointing you toward a desire you haven't yet acted on. When you feel fear, it's highlighting an area of uncertainty or growth you need to face. The problem is, most people don't treat these emotions as information, they treat them as identity. The moment you start saying things like "I am depressed" instead of "I feel depressed," or "I am anxious" instead of "I feel anxious," you lock yourself into those states. You take a temporary signal and turn it into who you are. That's when negative emotions become dangerous, not because they're inherently harmful, but because you've fused your sense of self with them. Instead of becoming curious about why you feel the way you do, you accept it as an unchangeable truth. And the longer you live in that state, the more your brain wires itself to experience it again and again. You have to start seeing negative emotions like the dashboard lights on your car. If the oil light comes on, it's not there to punish you. It's there to alert you that something needs attention. You don't smash the dashboard or give up on driving. You take it as a sign to act. The same is true for your emotions. They are your internal dashboard telling you that something in your thinking, your behavior, or your environment needs to be addressed. And just like with a car, ignoring the warning signs doesn't make them go away. It makes the problem worse. One of the most liberating shifts you can make is learning to separate yourself from your emotions. You are not your anger, your sadness, your frustration. You are the observer of those feelings, and because you are the observer, you have the power to change them. That power begins the moment you decide to step back and ask, what is this feeling trying to tell me? What action can I take because of it? Instead of spiraling deeper into the emotion, you can turn it into fuel for action. For example, if you're feeling resentment towards someone's success, instead of drowning in bitterness, you can choose to see it as a clue about what you want for yourself. Maybe you're not angry that they have it. You're frustrated that you've been denying yourself the effort to go after it. If you feel fear about a big decision instead of running from it, you can break it down into smaller steps and use it as a guide to areas you need to grow stronger in. If you feel sadness after a failure, you can use it as motivation to adjust your approach instead of as evidence that you're not capable. The key is to develop the habit of interrupting the automatic stories you tell yourself when you feel something negative. Most people feel a wave of anxiety and immediately think, something's wrong with me. They feel sadness and think, this always happens to me. They feel frustration and think, life is against me. These are not facts, they're just interpretations, and every interpretation is a choice, even if it doesn't feel like it in the moment. When you start choosing interpretations that empower you rather than trap you, the emotion loses its power to control you. It's also important to understand that emotions, both positive and negative, are temporary states. They ebb and flow like waves. The danger is when you attach meaning to them that cements them in place. Feeling low for a few hours or even a few days doesn't mean your entire life is bad. It means you're experiencing a natural human response to something in your environment. But because so many people resist or fear negative emotions, they don't process them. They push them down, numb them out, or distract themselves with constant stimulation. This avoidance creates a buildup, and what could have been a short-lived signal turns into a chronic state. If you want to change your destiny, you have to train yourself to face your feelings without judgment. Acknowledge them, name them, and then decide what to do with them. That's where the real transformation happens, not in pretending you're always positive, but in mastering your ability to navigate the full spectrum of your emotions without letting any single one dictate your life. It's about becoming emotionally resilient, knowing that no feeling is final, and that each one carries with it a lesson, a warning, or an opportunity for growth that can shift the course of your life in ways you can't yet imagine. Every single day, whether you realize it or not, you are making choices that shape the direction of your life. Most people drift through their days believing that their circumstances are in control, that they are simply reacting to whatever life throws at them. They underestimate the power of a conscious decision. Yet the reality is that your destiny is not some pre-written script hidden in the stars. It is a living, breathing creation built moment by moment through the decisions you make. The smallest choice can trigger a chain reaction that changes the course of your future. The food you eat, the words you speak, the people you spend time with, the risks you take or avoid, the thoughts you allow yourself to dwell on. All of these are choices, and each one carries you toward a different outcome. The truth is, most people are not unhappy because of a single catastrophic event. They are unhappy because of years of small, unconscious choices that compound over time. Choosing to hit snooze instead of getting up to work on your goals. Choosing to spend hours scrolling through meaningless content instead of learning a skill. Choosing to stay quiet when you should speak up. Choosing to let fear dictate your actions instead of moving forward despite it. None of these seem massive in the moment, but they stack. Over weeks, months, and years, they create an entirely different life than the one you might have had if you made different decisions. The power of conscious choice lies in the awareness that you can redirect your life at any point. You are not stuck unless you decide to stay stuck. The moment you recognize that you've been making choices on autopilot is the same moment you can take the wheel and begin steering towards something better. This doesn't mean you can instantly change every circumstance overnight, but it does mean that you can start shifting the odds in your favor by making one better decision today than you did yesterday, then another tomorrow, and another the day after that. Each decision becomes a building block in the foundation of your future. The challenge is that conscious choice requires effort. It's far easier to follow old patterns than it is to break them. It's easier to react than to respond. It's easier to let your emotions take over than to pause and ask yourself, is this action moving me closer to the life I want or further away? But the people who take control of their lives are the ones who train themselves to ask that question constantly. They understand that in every moment they are standing at a fork in the road. One path leads to growth, strength, and opportunity. The other leads to stagnation, weakness, and regret. And while the paths may not look dramatically different at first, over time the distance between them becomes massive. Your decisions also carry a powerful compounding effect. If you choose to be disciplined today, that decision makes it easier to be disciplined tomorrow. If you choose courage over comfort now, you build the muscle to choose courage again in the future. On the flip side, every time you choose to avoid discomfort or delay taking action, you make it easier to do the same next time. That's why so many people find themselves in cycles they can't seem to break, because they've unknowingly trained themselves to make the same limiting choices over and over. Breaking that cycle requires a conscious interruption. It means catching yourself in the moment and saying, "This time I will choose differently." It's important to understand that the quality of your choices is directly tied to the quality of your thoughts. If your thinking is negative, fear-driven, or filled with self-doubt, your choices will reflect that. You will make decisions that keep you safe but small, decisions that avoid risk but also avoid reward. But when you feed your mind with empowering thoughts, when you train yourself to focus on solutions rather than problems, you naturally begin making choices that expand your possibilities. This is why personal growth always begins in the mind, because your thoughts shape your decisions, and your decisions shape your destiny. There is also a deep connection between choice and responsibility. Many people avoid making conscious choices because they don't want to take responsibility for the outcome. If they drift through life reacting to circumstances, they can always blame something or someone else for their situation. But the moment you claim your power to choose, you also claim the responsibility for where that choice leads. This can be uncomfortable, but it is also the most liberating truth you will ever accept, because it means you are no longer at the mercy of fate, luck, or other people. You become the author of your own story, and sometimes the most life-changing choice is simply the decision to stop living according to your old identity. Every action you take reinforces who you believe yourself to be. If you think of yourself as someone who can't speak confidently, you will make choices that keep you silent. If you believe you are bad with money, you will make choices that confirm that belief. But the moment you decide, "I am no longer that person," your choices begin to align with your new identity. You start acting like the person you want to become, not the person you've been. Over time, this identity shift becomes your reality, not because of luck or magic, but because of the accumulation of deliberate, conscious decisions that all move you in the same direction. Your environment is silently shaping your destiny every single day, whether you notice it or not. The people you spend time with, the conversations you have, the content you consume, the spaces you live and work in, all of it is programming your mind and influencing your behavior. You might think you're in control, but human beings are deeply influenced by their surroundings. If you're surrounded by people who complain, procrastinate, and make excuses, you will eventually start mirroring those same habits. If you live in a space that's chaotic, messy, and uninspiring, your mind will reflect that same clutter. Your environment can either be a launch pad for growth or a cage that keeps you trapped in the same patterns. The reason environment is so powerful is because it doesn't just affect what you do, it affects what you believe is possible. If everyone around you is settling for mediocrity, your goals will start to shrink to fit the size of their ambitions. If the voices you hear every day are full of fear, negativity, and limitation, you'll unconsciously start to think and speak the same way. On the other hand, if you surround yourself with people who aim higher, work harder, and refuse to settle, their energy becomes contagious. You start to normalize ambition. You start to see success as the baseline, not the exception. Your associations are either pulling you up or dragging you down. There's no neutral. Every conversation you have is planting seeds in your mind. When you talk to people who inspire you, they plant seeds of possibility. When you talk to people who discourage you, they plant seeds of doubt. Those seeds grow into beliefs, and those beliefs dictate your actions. That's why it's critical to be intentional about who has access to your mind. You can't control every person you encounter, but you can control who you spend the most time with, who you listen to, and whose opinions you allow to influence your decisions. This doesn't just apply to people. It applies to the mental diet you consume, the videos you watch, the books you read, the social media feeds you scroll through are all shaping your thinking. If you fill your mind with negativity, gossip, and distractions, Don't be surprised when your motivation dies and your vision for your life starts to fade. But if you fill your mind with content that challenges you, educates you, and motivates you to improve, your standard for yourself will rise automatically. The human brain adapts to the dominant influences in its environment, so you must make sure those influences are moving you in the right direction. Your physical environment matters too. The space you live and work in can either energize you or drain you. A cluttered, disorganized space creates mental noise and makes it harder to focus. A clean, intentional space can give you a sense of clarity and control. Even small changes like adding inspiring reminders in your workspace, keeping your environment tidy, and removing distractions can have a massive impact on your productivity and mindset. One of the fastest ways to change your life is to change your environment. If you can't yet move to a completely new place or change your circle entirely, you can still start making intentional shifts. Limit your time with people who drain you. Spend more time with people who inspire you, even if it's through a book, a podcast, or an online community. Curate your social media to show you things that push you forward instead of holding you back. Rearrange your living space to reflect the person you're becoming, not the person you used to be. Sometimes people resist changing their environment because it feels uncomfortable to outgrow the people and situations they've known for years. But growth always comes with discomfort. If you want to become more, you have to stop surrounding yourself with things that keep you the same. You can't spend all your time in an environment that normalizes excuses and then wonder why you can't build discipline. You can't immerse yourself in negativity all day and then wonder why your mindset feels heavy. Your environment is like the soil you plant yourself in. If the soil is toxic, the tree will never grow tall. The truth is, your environment will often shape your identity without you realizing it. If you're around people who constantly talk about struggle, you'll start to identify with struggle. If you're around people who constantly talk about solutions, you'll start to identify with possibility. Identity drives behavior, and behavior drives results. This is why the fastest way to elevate your results is to elevate your environment. You don't need to wait until you feel ready. You need to put yourself in rooms that force you to rise to the occasion. When your surroundings demand more from you, you will either level up or remove yourself. Either way, you won't stay the same. Your environment isn't just where you are physically, it's also where you spend your mental and emotional energy. Protecting that space is non-negotiable if you want to change your destiny. It's about being ruthless with what you allow to influence you, because every influence, positive or negative, is shaping the path you're on in ways you can't always see in the moment. Over time, the pull of your environment becomes the direction of your life, and the direction of your life becomes the reality you live in.